Hi everyone, this is Erin from Sandpaper Road, and today I'm sharing a design team project for Maymay Made It using this Walk in Love stamp set and some Distress Oxide inks. It's a mixed media tag, really great on a card or scrapbook page, or you could even adjust the size of the tag at the beginning and make an ATC. So I'm going to show you how to make this today, so stick around. I'm using the Walk in Love stamp set by Maymay Made It, and this is absolutely awesome. Great for a variety of occasions. I love the sentiments and the verses. So great. To get started, we're going to be using a variety of different supplies. All supplies can be found at maymaymadeit.com. And first I'm starting with a piece of Alabaster cardstock from Brutus, Monroe, and it's a really heavy cardstock, 100-pound, although I think it feels more like 110-pound. It's really thick. Now, I at first measured it to like a panel size, putting some of it off to the side for later. But then I kept trimming and trimming because I just was knowing that that was going to be a tag. So my final size after all this trimming was 3.5 inches by 5 inches. So you can skip all the guesswork and just trim your cardstock to those sizes. I really like this Alabaster cardstock for this project. It really holds up well. And all I did was fold the rectangle in half and snip off a corner. And I got a real nice tag shape. And I didn't have to seal it, like press it down, so there really wasn't a crease in the middle. And a regular old office hole punch to just make a little hole for myself at the top. And I pulled out a variety of Distress Oxide inks and the Echo Park paper pad in Just Married. It's a double-sided paper pad. And I just wanted to pick some colors that would coordinate well with that, and took a little bit of time to decide what I was going to do color-wise. I thought I'd do some ink smushing. This is where you just press the ink pad into the craft mat, pretty sturdy. Start with like 3 colors, spritz it with some water, and then you just get your heat gun ready. You're going to need a heat gun for sure. And I don't have this paper done with gesso or anything like that. I just pressed the cardstock into the ink and then used the heat tool to dry and pressed again, sprayed again. The Oxide inks are a blend of dye and pigment inks, so they will oxidize with water, just meaning they create a lot of interesting blends, and they perform a little bit like a hybrid. They perform a little bit like a dye ink and a little bit like a pigment ink. And Jennifer McGuire and Tim Holtz both have videos about that as well. But I just experimented with some different combinations of 3 colors. It's most important though when doing this technique to make sure that you dry your surface in between each layer. If you don't do that, you're just going to have a big piece of cardstock with a bunch of wet ink and it muds together and you make a muddy mess. As long as you dry it in between each layer, you actually can see the individual colors layering on top of each other, and it's just beautiful. Really hard to duplicate with other mixed media type products. So this is a really nice way to just make something a little bit different. And I totally love the cardstock for this technique. It's nice and thick and it holds up well with the water. Almost like how a watercolor cardstock holds up. So these were just the colors I had on hand. And I'm going to link in the description box to the Distress Oxide ink choices at maymaymadeit.com. And then you can choose, if you choose to click on the link down there, if you're interested, you can pick the colors that you want. It's really fun too. It becomes addicting when you are doing this technique. So I just kept doing this on the tag until I was kind of satisfied with the way that looked. And honestly, for best results, I think it's best to, there's like a nice close-up of what I ended up with. I think it's best to like sit it under a big book or a pile of something and let it completely dry overnight before you start stamping and doing other stuff on top of it. So then I took the other half of the piece of white cardstock. Remember, I made tags out of the first half. So I took the second half, and I'm using my stamping platform, and just whatever stamping platform you have is fine. Or if you want to use an acrylic block or a stamp press, that's fine too. Just whatever you have for stamping. And I'm going to stamp the shoes and the sentiment that says "Walk in Love." And these stamps are photopolymer stamps, and they're really, really nice. They stamp beautifully. As a matter of fact, I kind of had a little aha moment here when I was stamping, because the Walk in Love, I pointed right at it. I was like, ooh, because it looked so different stamped than it did just there in the packaging. And it's so pretty. Like, it's kind of hard to see, but look for it in the close-ups as I show it a little closer. There's tiny, tiny little striped lines in the word love, and it looks so good. Now, I used a Memento Tuxedo black ink for stamping. That's kind of my go-to for stamping. And I'm going to cut them out, and I think I'm going to do some hand tearing. Here I'm just making sure that I tear toward me every time. So turn the paper and then tear towards you. Turn the paper and tear towards you. And then just take your time. It leaves always tear towards you, because then you have the tear going the same way and you can control it a little bit better. Then my hands were really dry and I couldn't get the edges to fold up good, so I just sprayed the mat and dipped my fingers in just a little bit of water, and then I could easily roll up the edges. Not like I was trying to go for a rolled effect. I just didn't want it to look just plain. I wanted it to look a little bit rough. And that'll dry the same as my tag. And I knew I was going to ink around the edges, but I didn't know what color yet, so I just set it aside. There, look at the little stripes in the letters. Doesn't that look good? I love that. So then I took some Distress Oxide ink in this pink color, probably worn lipstick or something. And I have a water pen, and I made sure that the ink was dry. I was just going to watercolor a little bit with the water pen, and it could have just been a paintbrush, but the water pen was what I had close by. And actually, to be honest, because I was using a water pen, I probably didn't need to spray the ink with water. But it was looking fine. It was painting real nice, and that's something else that you can do with actually a lot of your inks. You try this technique with the ink pads you have on hand. You'd be surprised at what you would end up with. A lot of times that works with a lot of different kinds of inks. So it was going along fine, and I was really pleased. I liked to turn it toward me and then kind of pull away. Then all of a sudden I saw that the ink was starting to bleed, and I got irritated with that. And then I remembered that the go-to ink that I reached for was not the archival ink, it was the water-based ink. So of course, if you add water to a water-based ink, it's going to bleed. So I used the archival ink that I had on hand. There's a Versa Claire ink that's also really good, and you can get that at Maymay Made It. And I also made sure to heat set this before I tried this technique again. And you'll see that this time around it worked much better because I am using an ink that it will not react with water. So for this technique, make sure that you have an ink that it'll probably say waterproof, or if you're going to use a pigment ink, then make sure it's fully dry. You could also try instead, if you wanted to emboss with some embossing powder, that would be a good idea too. And then you'd have, there would be no way that it would bleed. But I really like the way that this looks when you kind of paint the Oxide ink onto an image. And these images are just perfect for watercoloring or colored pencils or coloring in or something like that. So I had a good time just doing this and taking my time. And I actually have a pair of shoes that look like that, but they're low cut. They're not the high top ones. And I colored the tip of that sole pink instead of leaving it white. But then I thought, oh, that's a quick fix for that. At the end, once it's all dry, you can actually go back in with a white gel pen and just correct any little minor mistakes. Now, there was no way I could have done with a gel pen to fix that ink blobby mess the first time around, though, so I did want to restamp that. And definitely a heat gun to set this, because you're just gonna gum up your gel pen. There I go in with my white gel pen and just do a little bit of touch-ups. Now I'm not trying to make it look absolutely perfect, because watercolor and watercoloring ink sort of has a look of its own. So I'm gonna let it have the look of its own. But I really did mess up on where I colored it, so that looks a lot better. I was happy with that. It looks good. I'm going to fussy cut that out later on. Oh, there was the first one that I did. And you could tell the ink just held up better. This is a Wink of Stella pen. It's just a shimmer pen. And mine, I realize, is kind of running out. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to squeeze a big blob of this stuff on the cardstock and then sort of paint on the shimmer. And it's kind of hard to see actually in the video, but it creates a really nice, clear, just shimmer. It's not like you put glitter on it. It just shimmers a little bit, catches your eye. I'll see if I can tip it so you can see this shimmer. You might be able to see it every once in a while. There, you can kind of see it on like the circles and stuff. So then I'm just going to, I always snip off the excess and then just, when I fussy cut around. Now by this time, it was actually the next day and the tag was dry all the way. And so I got out the footprint stamps from the stamp set, and I thought that I would use some more of the Oxide ink just to kind of keep going with that theme. I debated about actually using that pigment ink again, but I thought no, because this will be in the background anyway. I don't want to take it too seriously. So this is just a dark, I think it's ice spruce, and make the footprints go across the tag. It looks so good. Now, however you set it up on your stamping platform, you can just leave the stamps the way they are and turn the tag. And then you can get a lot of variety for where you're putting it. And you can move it and keep the stamps in the same place, turn the tag, and then even change the ink colors. I think that's what I do here. I think I might switch to yellow. Because remember too, well, I shouldn't say remember, but I know that in my head that this is going to be a background part of the tag. And so I don't want to get too hung up about all of the stuff that may be covered up. And some people may say, well, why do it? Well, the whole point is to layer and layer and layer and just create more interest. And that's the fun of mixed media, is that then at the end of the project, you can see little hints of things that you've done in the background. And each layer kind of tells its own little story. And there's some yellow. I think that looks so good. Look at those footprints. They look great. Now, I did take the one single footprint on an acrylic block and with some more ice spruce because I wanted it to walk off of the tag. And then I just wanted one like down at the bottom and one, I think I put one at the top there. And I didn't need it to be like so perfect that I needed the Stampin' Platform. And that was good. I was very happy with the way that looked. Very happy with the way that looked. Now here's my Echo Park paper pad, and it's double-sided. I've used it a ton of times since I've got it. And I really liked this little, it's like a little circle emblem thing with flowers in it. And then I thought, oh, how perfect the word love to add as another accent, and that would look so good. So I cut out just one of these words. It's sort of a rough cut. I thought, well, I'll clean it up in a little bit. I thought for a second I was going to try to do it with those big old scissors, and then I was like, no, I think I'm just going to wait. So I used my smaller scissors, cut out a few things from the pattern paper, And I thought that looked really good. And then I had 5 things. I like to work in odd numbers, and you'll see in a minute what I'm talking about. This is wood effect pattern paper, and you can get this also at maymaymadeit.com. And again, check the description box for links to all of these products if you're interested. They're all available at Maymay Made It. So I'm just cutting a regular A2 sized panel to go on top of an A2 size card base. And this is another piece of that Brutus Monroe Alabaster heavyweight cardstock. I cut it directly in half and then turn it and score it at the halfway mark, creating a top folding card base. And be mindful, this cardstock is heavy. And then I'm using the double-sided Maymay tape. I call it Maymay tape. It's really nice double-sided tape to put the panel onto the card base, just like so. Now, knowing that then later when my tag is done, it will go on top of that. But I don't have to. I could use it for a lot of other ways. I could use it on a scrapbook layout, or I could have made it smaller and made an ATC, stands for Artist Trading Card. This is just some white acrylic paint, which is sort of my, I really and truly cannot live without it. I don't know why. It just looks like it. I'll be looking at a project, I think it's all finished, and then I'll be like, nope, it needs white acrylic paint. And so I end up adding it to almost everything. So that to me was the finishing touch of the inky part, of the wet part of the tag. Except, of course, I had to ink the edges of the sentiment. And by then, at that stage, I knew what color I needed. I'm glad I didn't ink it any earlier. So I'm just going to roughly sort of lay this out. Look how good that is going to look. And this is what I meant by odd numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. And that pleases the eye. It looks good. So try to think in terms of odd numbers when you're doing accents. Now I had some just basic string twine in my stash. I always keep my string and my ribbon in strawberry containers. And there's what it looks like when I mounted it on the tag with the Maymay tape and just some, I think I had some fun foam. Now here's how you can get this neat look. You just fold it in half and push it through the hole. And then push the 2 strings through that hole and pull slightly and gently. And you get a really nice looking sort of a self-holding piece of string there. And then I had mounted some more Maymay tape on the back of the tag. And we're just going to stick it on the card. We have a great looking card. But again, you could use the tag itself in a variety of ways. That would look really good on a scrapbook page. Really good on a scrapbook page. That's why I made 2 tags, because I knew I was going to make another one. So great. Yeah, that's my project. So happy about it. Now, of course, for an afterthought, I had to add some Distress Oxide ink around the outside edges. It just looked like it needed one more thing, and paint spatter was going to, I just couldn't do paint spatter on this. And that's it. That's my project. Love it. So head over to the Maymay Made It blog. Don't forget that when you purchase this stamp set, Samaritan's Feet, a $5 donation will be made to Samaritan's Feet when you purchase this stamp set. And there's details there in the description box. And thanks so much to Maymay Made It for providing the products today. Look at that. Great. Mixed media. Love it. So don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Maymay Made It and to Sandpaper Road on YouTube, and click on that bell to receive notifications. You can visit the Maymay Made It and the sandpaperroad.com blogs and the description box for lots of links, lots more information, and find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Thanks for subscribing, and see you next time. Bye-bye.